Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Cryptic Conversations. I'm your host, Tunes from the Crypt, and we have another very special episode in store today. Today's guest is a woman named Gianna Shamone. Gianna is an author, creative, and intuitive spiritual counselor and healer with a focus on tarot, oracle, and human design. Hailing from the vibrant heart of Berlin and currently residing in Bali, Gianna is not just an author, spiritual alchemist, and visionary. She's a beacon of spiritual transformation. Her debut book, Finding Me, speaks volumes of her healing journey and empowerment, while her artistic canvas extends to analog photography and captivating visual direction. Guided by her belief in the profound energy exchange of the universe, Gianna's spiritual awakening in 2017 ignited a commitment to purposeful living. With human design as her compass and psychic abilities as her guide, Gianna is here to lead us through the intricate path of self-discovery and alignment, and I'm extremely excited to have her share her insights with us today. Welcome, Gianna.
Oh, thank you so much. What an introduction. I'm
Yeah,
just as excited. Thank you for having me.
of course. Yeah, so we can dive right into it. I always like to ask the guests, and to learn about their early life, So talk to me about your early life. Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school, and what your family was like?
I grew up in Hamburg, which is a city in the north of Germany. I would say I grew up very unconventional. I was raised by a single mom with the help of her best friend, basically. So I always say I have a second mom. When I talk about my parents, I talk more about my two moms than my actual birth father.
Hmm.
And the mother of my second mom was like a grandmother to me. So these three women basically raised me in a hair salon. Like the best
Oh,
friend of my
really?
mom, my second mom owned a hair salon,
Hmm.
or she was the I think she rented it. I didn't think she owned it, but it was hers basically. And my mom worked there as well. So this is how I grew up, raised by three independent, strong women, two of them Aries moms, a lot of fire energy. I'm a Leo and Sagittarius rising, so there was a lot of fire. It was a lot
Hmm.
of expression, and yeah, so very unconventional, but at the same time, I felt very loved, very supported, and didn't feel like I missed anything.
Hmm. Okay, yeah. And I think I read about it on your website. So, growing up in a spiritual household, what were some of the earliest memories or experiences that ignited your interest in spirituality and led you down the spiritual path?
So the second mom that I mentioned, she is into astrology since I don't even know how long, but I think the first time she dove into my chart, my birth chart, was probably when I was around 10-ish, maybe a little earlier.
Oh, wow.
So it was always like, yeah, it was always a part. It was always in my awareness. It was always around me. So there were always
Hmm.
moments where she was just like, oh, Jana, like next week, this and this is happening, and your moon is
Oh,
in that
wow.
house, and that might bring up something like this,
Hmm.
which was not necessarily every week or so, but like, I don't know, a few times a year, she was just like, oh, something big is happening. Let me tell her about it. So it was always like a thing that I believed in. I always knew more than just my sun sign.
Yeah.
So I think that was already a big part of me understanding that there's so much more than this
Mm.
physical world. And
Yeah.
the saying as above, so below is something that I did not know as the sentence necessarily, but I understood the concept very early on.
Yeah.
So that was definitely my introduction, I would say. But also my mom, my birth mom, she was always very interested in spirituality. We had a very special bond in the sense of being interested in energy. She
Mm.
always told me like everything, like cause and effect, and making me understand that everything that I put out there will eventually come back. And it actually was crazy because I think I must have been like around 6 or 7 when I had an out of body experience connected to my mother.
Oh, wow.
Like yes, I was in bed and I just woke up, and all of a sudden I found myself in the bedroom of my mother, and I told her, Mom, breakfast is ready. And she woke up, she looked at me, she looks at the clock, she looks back at me, she's like, it's 2 a.m. in the morning. And this gave me like a reality check. Like, why did I say breakfast is ready when it's like
Yeah.
in the middle of the night? So like this moment just broke this illusion or the reality that I was in, and made me believe that whatever I was doing and saying does not make any sense. So I fell out of this understanding and was pushed back basically into my body.
Mm-hmm.
So I literally felt like being pushed back into my body, and I woke up again being in bed again. Like I
Wow.
felt being back in my body. And then I was like, okay, that must have been a dream. Like I was like, that makes no sense. So I just didn't think about it anymore. And
Yeah.
then the next morning, I was actually telling my mom about this crazy dream that I had. And she was like, you were actually in my room. Like
Oh,
you were
wow.
actually there. I talked to
Yeah.
you. I wanted to ask you about it. So that is the thing that we come back to every few years, where we just like, that really happened, huh? Yeah, it really did. So there was always like a sense of me understanding that there's more. I early on had the ability to just hear voices, getting messages, hearing
Mm-hmm.
something in songs, hearing whispers. I heard my name everywhere. So there was always a
Wow.
bit of a sense of like, I felt something is around me. But probably until I was like in my teenage years, I thought that that is just normal. I thought that everyone hears this and everyone is having this
Yeah.
experience. So I didn't really think it was any special or paid like crazy attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, that's basically a few pinpointers of how
Yeah.
spirituality and everything out there came into my life.
Okay. And then so I saw it on your website too. So it said you had a spiritual awakening in 2017. Can you talk about what caused this awakening and how it set you on a path of purposeful living and healing?
Yes. Well, 2017, I call it a spiritual awakening just for the lack of a better word. I
Mm,
guess we are on a spiritual journey, and
yeah.
it can be ignited, and we can be awakened through so many things. But
Hmm.
specifically in 2017, I went through a very traumatic breakup that really took a toll on me. That was really difficult for me to accept and handle. I was very codependent in that relationship, and it literally felt like I'm dying when this relationship was over. So it was like a literal reset to my life. Like
Mm,
I like when I think back in my life, this is the moment where I'm like, okay, this is where my new life started. Like I'm a
yeah.
literal different person
Yeah.
than the person that lived before 2017. And yes, that was just really a thing that I brought up this poetry book that you mentioned, Finding Me,
Yeah.
that I wrote afterwards, because most of the poems is really about the time when I was healing from that breakup. It was really me dealing with that situation. So I literally felt like I was crushed on the floor in many different pieces. And until I came to the point of understanding that this gives me the opportunity to put myself back together in the way I want to be,
Hmm.
I was devastated. But when that perspective shift happened, this is what I would call this spiritual awakening, because I realized like everything that I embodied until this point that I didn't like about myself, that I didn't feel was enough,
Hmm.
or that I didn't feel was authentic to who I really wanted to be, I was
Yeah.
able to let that go now, because it was like on the floor anyway. So I was literally able to say like, okay, I want to put myself back together in this way, but I don't want to take this piece anymore. I don't want to be this anymore, but I'd rather
Yeah.
be what this person has or what this person does. And just really got inspired and expanded through other people and started to, yeah, become a more authentic version of myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I can definitely relate to you. Would you say, do you have trust issues now? Like, or are you still open, or do you enjoy spending time with yourself? Like right now, I enjoy just being alone. I enjoy it so much. I don't need anybody really. Like I'm so much more happy just doing my own thing.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, that was definitely a result out of me working through this trauma, because I have abandonment wounds, because the first 4 years of my life, my father wasn't really present. And even after that,
Mhm.
he was physically present, but not emotionally. So there's definitely a thing that is connected for me, specifically as a woman, that is being triggered through relationships with
Yeah.
men,
Hmm.
where this abandonment wound is coming up. But yeah, I would say, so I was single from 2017 until 2019, and that was like a big time for me to just really shift a lot of things, heal a lot of things. I started my deprogramming agenda that I'm now using in my mentorship with my clients,
Nice.
and just did it for myself for that time, and just really healed a lot. And after that relationship in 2019, it felt like it was another level, another depth to discovering more of myself, being alone, being okay with being alone, and actually starting to love being alone. So like, it's definitely a thing that I disliked immensely. Being alone was a thing that was so uncomfortable for me. But after these two phases, and now I'm single at the moment as well, it just really helped me to realize that you are never really alone when you like being with yourself. Like, it's fun. I like myself. I think I'm mad funny. I think I'm dope. I can do so many things that I'm proud of now that I would have loved to have the courage to do when I was younger. And all of that just really goes towards that healing journey that I embarked on, and that I decided to allow myself to embark on, because I felt broken, and because everything was dramatic and traumatic for me for a while. But yeah, it just really brought up the person that I want to be. And now I can actually say I am very much okay and really enjoy my own company. But I'm at a point where I'm like now open for a relationship, and I want to be in a relationship, and I want to go into the next level in this journey of my life right now. But I would have never thought that I actually enjoy being alone. So that was a huge step for me, for sure.
Yeah. I can definitely relate to you. So I'd like to ask you, do you have any experience with ayahuasca or any other sacred plant medicines?
Yes, I do. I had a ayahuasca ceremony in 2019, I believe it was, or was it 2020? I think it was, oh no, I think it was 2020 actually. Yeah. It was absolutely life-changing, absolutely incredible. It was a 2-day journey, 14 hours each. It was a lot. It was just out of Berlin. It was actually, because I mean, it was COVID time. There was no chance of like traveling anywhere in 2020 during that time. But it was absolutely beautiful. It was rooted in the Brazilian tradition. So it was guided by a couple. One of them was from Brazil. One of them was German, I believe. It was absolutely beautiful. I realized so much about myself. It was absolutely horrifying at times as well. Like, it was definitely a journey that was a lot to take in. But I'm immensely grateful that I trusted myself enough to try it. Yeah.
Okay. So would you say that ayahuasca was like the number one, like, most transformative, pivotal moment of your life? Or no? For me,
Not necessarily. It's definitely in my top 3, but I think the breakup that I was talking about in retrospect was just as powerful as my ayahuasca experience. And then last year I went to Egypt and went to this retreat that was just as intense and just as transformative and just as crazy. So I would say at this point, these are my top 3. I wouldn't be able to say which one is the craziest or the strongest or most powerful.
Yeah, and we're going to dive into that Egypt stuff right now. So yeah, I'm real excited to get into that. So real quick though, can you share with us your personal journey that led you from Berlin to Bali, and how these diverse environments have influenced your spiritual and creative path?
So, funny story, actually, I moved to Portugal in December 2021. No, it was November 2021. And I was there. I was like, I moved back and forth between Portugal and Germany for a while prior to that. So it was really like, okay, that's my new journey. I was just sure I don't want to live in Germany anymore. So it was a great time, but it was winter. So I'm a sucker for the sun. I love the sun. I love warm weather. So for me, it was like, it's cozy and nice and everything, but like, it could be a little warmer. So a friend of mine actually decided to go to Bali for a couple of months to become a yoga teacher. And I was like, well, let me just join you. So I did. And I stayed. I just stayed in Bali. I just realized that the energy here, the weather, but also just the energy of the people, specifically the local people, but also everyone that decided to come here and live here is just on a different level. It's just a different frequency. The country Indonesia is the main religion is Islam, but when it comes to the island Bali, I don't want to put out like a number because I'm not 100% sure about it, but I would just say about 90% probably of the people on the island Bali are Hindus. So even though the country is Muslim, but the island is Hindu, that just is a whole different energy. Like there's so much of heightened faith and belief and practice of the belief system here that you can literally sense that the energy is on a higher frequency. And when you stay here for longer, you kind of have to start matching that frequency by looking at your shit, healing your stuff, going within. And I would say there's probably like a 3-4 months mark where people either decide to surrender to what the energy of Bali is doing to you, meaning looking at your stuff and releasing stuff, or people leave. And that was
3 months?
I would say probably 3-4 months. I think this is the mark where people realize like, okay, I either have to do some things to match that energy here, or it's going to be so uncomfortable that I have to leave. And obviously a lot of people are not necessarily even aware that that is the case, and they just feel uncomfortable and then they're like, leave again, right? But like that was my experience. So the first 6 months, the first month was amazing, and then the 6 months were just like really hermit mode, really going within, really learning more about myself and looking at more of my stuff.
Nice. Okay. So so this will be the meat and potatoes of the episode. So, I found you on Nick Zay. How do you say his last name? Zay's podcast. And, I loved hearing about your fascination with Egypt and your trip there. I'd love it if you could give the listeners your backstory with Egypt and the transformative trip you went on when you visited Egypt for the first time.
Yes. So Egypt has always been an interest of mine. It was always in my awareness of some sorts. I'm a very huge Michael Jackson fan, and I just remember when I saw the Remember the Time music video for the first time, I must have been 4 probably, or 5 maybe. I was fascinated by it. I already obviously had an affinity. That's what I wanted to say, an affinity when it comes to Michael Jackson. So obviously that was a case where I'm like, ooh, that is even more exciting and amazing. But just how everything was depicted, the energy, the clothes, all of that gold and the colors, it was just really, really fascinating to me. And every time I saw the pyramids on TV or whatever in a movie or in a documentary, I was always fascinated by it. It always came back up for me. It was always an interest. And it was always on my bucket list to visit Egypt, but it never really happened. And then last year, here in Bali, I actually met a girl. We became friends. We had a good time while she was visiting Bali. And she was like, yeah, I'm actually going to this Egypt retreat, and I feel like it might be of interest of you. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. I would like to look into it. And then I looked into it. I actually did not have the funds to go there, but I felt like such a strong calling that this is my next journey, that this is what I need to do, that I just trusted it will happen. And within a few days, I was actually able to manifest the funds through crazy circumstances. And then I was just like, okay, I guess it's going to happen. And it was absolutely, again, life-changing. I came back another person. It is an energy in this country that is totally different than it is in Bali. In Bali, it's much more feminine energy, and in Egypt, it's much more masculine energy. Not necessarily in the temples. This is where I felt a shift again back into like feminine energy, but the country itself was very masculine energy.
Yeah.
So that was definitely an adjustment. So like, I guess it's just the thing when you like get out of your bubble and go back into the real world, you are like you're being triggered again,
Yeah.
and you have to like just readjust. And this is how it felt like for me. But that was just part of me, I guess, opening up to receive whatever needed to come through and receive all of the downloads. And that's what happened then.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think you were talking about it on his podcast, that you said that growing up, like you didn't really feel connected to your roots, to your German heritage, to your Italian heritage, and that, you know, you just were always drawn to Egypt. And I think you mentioned that you've done some past life regressions. You've done that, right? And found that you
Yeah.
were Egyptian in a past life. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I did a DNA test and a past
Oh
life
yeah.
regression, and it actually turns out that I have North African roots. And the way I grew up was also, again, very unconventional. One of my uncles that was like my main male figure in my life is from West Africa. So like the interest in that continent was always there. The tradition was there. The music was there. The food was there in me growing up. So there was always like an awareness of this. Why am I so interested in this? Where is this coming from? And then when I actually found out that I have North African roots and I have several past lives in Egypt, I saw one of them in detail. I
Oh
saw
wow.
another one that was just glimpses of it, just really like some scenes. But the other one was like, I went through the entire life. It was just really like me when I was in my teenage years, and then another fast forward moment to like in my mid-20s, another one to my 40s, and then another one, and then another one. And then actually I died around like 70, 75 or something. So I really saw
Oh wow.
different glimpses and stages of that life. And it was so impressive. And I realized and was able to understand that the son that I had in that lifetime is my mother in this lifetime.
No way.
So it's super crazy. Like when
Wow.
you're like in this past life regression, you just really like
Yeah.
have an awareness of understanding, and there's no logic. It's just a knowingness. And yeah, like I woke up from that past life regression, and I was just like, wow, okay, like now I actually need to make it happen with Egypt. But the funny thing is the past life regression was also in 2020. And I again did not make it to Egypt until 2022.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah.
Yeah, what you're talking about, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Dolores Cannon. And she has the
Yes.
quantum healing hypnosis technique. And I love watching her videos and studying her. And, you know, she likes to talk about, yeah, that like we have different lives, and like we'll play different characters in different lives, you know. So as you mentioned, you know, your son in that life is your mom in this life. So we'll kind of play different characters in different roles so we can learn different lessons. This is mind-blowing stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Also, you know, have you read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho?
Yes, I did, but the last time I did was when I was maybe 20. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
like
Kind of
15
blurry.
years ago.
Yeah.
It's yeah, I mean, I know the agenda of it. I know what it's about, but yeah, it's kind of blurry. Like I need to read it
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. So it's about a shepherd boy, and he just has this calling to go to Egypt, and he wants to find this treasure. And that book changed my life, you know. And the book is the way it's written, it's just like he notices all these signs and these synchronicities, and it leads him to Egypt, and he follows his dream to go, you know, find this treasure. And it kind of reminds me of your life.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so can you talk a little bit more about the trip to Egypt? You know, visiting the pyramids, the temples, and meeting the wisdom keeper. Talk a little bit about
Yes.
all that. Yeah.
I mean, it already started incredibly magical because first, oh, it wasn't the first evening, but the second evening, I actually was able to already meet the wisdom keeper, even though the retreat was not for another 5-ish days or so. And I spent watching the sunset on her balcony with her together. And the crazy thing is that you can look directly on 2 of the 3 pyramids and the swings from her balcony, and the sun is setting directly behind the peak of the biggest pyramid.
Wow.
It's surreal. It's
Sounds beautiful. Yeah.
absolutely, it's so beautiful. So that in itself was so magical already. And she just read me to filth. Like she just looked at me and she was like, this is why you're here. This is what you need to embark on. And you're here to
Wow.
actually meet me. And I was like, yep, yep, sounds accurate. Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
I'm ready. So it was super interesting, super intense, but I'm very much open for these kind of conversations and receiving wisdom from people like her in that way. So like I was welcoming it very much, even though it was intense and it was
Yeah.
a little bit uncomfortable,
Hmm.
specifically in front of everybody else. But it was absolutely magical, and it just did not change the intensity of magic and um things that were just out of this world just continued in the same intensity like it started.
Yeah.
So we traveled along the Nile and visited different ancient sites like the pyramids, different temples, and each temple or each site represents something specific that you are being initiated into. So one of the temples, for example, is clearing out your karma. Another one is facing your fears.
Wow.
Another one is balancing your chakras. Another one is opening your third eye, and so on and so on.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's a whole journey that this wisdom keeper put together based on, or basically her father put it together and she just took it on after he died. She's also now in her 60s, so it's been in their family, this 9 initiation journey, for probably around 60 years or so.
Oh, wow.
So it's very very traditional, but at the same time she is so balanced in her humanness. Like at one point you look at her and you're like, oh, she must be the most enlightened person on the planet, and then the next moment she just curses someone out and you're like, okay, there's the human. And
Yeah.
it's super interesting and it's super amazing to see that she carries it with such authenticity,
Yeah.
because it just really allows you to do the same and not feel like you always have to be that enlightened person. So it's a very interesting journey to have it with a woman, firstly, just because it's not very common for
Mm.
someone with that caliber to like guide you through Egypt being a woman.
Yeah.
It's usually men doing this work. So that was super special for me personally, but then also seeing her being so human at the same time just was a thing that I could really, really relate to.
Yeah.
And yeah, it actually led me to stay in contact with her. We really hit it off together. It was like a really auntie vibe energy.
Uh-huh.
And then last year, or yeah, towards the end of last year, we then decided we wanted to do a retreat together as well, which we are embarking on this October, which I'm super excited about.
Nice. And yeah, didn't you say like as soon as you saw her, she said something to you like, you know, I've been waiting for you or something?
It was a thing like, so I went on this retreat, which was facilitated by a different woman, and she
Yeah.
collaborated with that
Okay.
wisdom keeper. And as soon as I was interested in that retreat, I felt already the pull to go to this retreat, but I felt a bit of a weird feeling around that person facilitating it. Not that I
Uh,
didn't like her or that I felt like she is a bad person or anything. It just necessarily
yeah.
didn't align with my energy. And as soon as I was in Egypt, the wisdom keeper on that balcony looked at me and she was like, you are here because of me, not because of her. And I was like, whoa. And I
Yeah.
already had that realization after I met her, like 20 minutes prior to that. I was like, that's why I'm
Yeah.
here. And then she called it out and I was like, whoa.
Wow.
So this is how aware she is and in tune she is and how much in alignment she is. So it was it was very special.
How are the Egyptian people when it comes to like all the tourists going over there? Do they like all the tourism? Do they not like Americans? Do they not like people going over there? I could imagine, you know, they keep secret knowledge for certain people, and maybe you know, she felt a vibe and a connection to you, and you know, kind of going to share the secret knowledge with you.
Yeah. I mean, it depends who you are talking to, I would
Hmm.
say. So the wisdom keeper grew up in a non-religious way necessarily. She grew up in a more spiritual way. So they weren't necessarily praying 5 times a day like a lot of the other people in their belief system in Egypt. But her father was always like, no, we are going to meditate. We are going to do it differently here. So when you talk to her, she is just really open and wants everyone on this planet to be able to have the access of this wisdom, because she believes that that is one of the keys to help you to your ascension,
Yeah.
to your spiritual awakening,
Yeah.
in whatever state you are in life. So she is just very much welcoming
Yeah.
everyone that is open to it and that is respectful, obviously. When it comes to the rest of the people in Egypt, I did not at all feel ever that I was not welcomed or anything else towards the other people that I saw, the tourists. There's a bit of a thing as soon as you're there and you're being respectful, so you are deciding to actually, you know, allow yourself to immerse a bit into the tradition, meaning like covering up a little bit more, covering up your shoulders as a woman, more wearing skirts or a dress instead of like shorts or whatever,
Yeah.
is you are being welcomed even more. I
Oh,
want to
okay.
say it's just even more loving, just because you just like bring respect to the country. But even if not, it was always very welcome energy there, absolutely. But also the thing is, it is so hot there, even like in September or in October, that you actually welcome to cover your shoulders. It's not like necessarily that you want to
Oh,
be
yeah.
directly in the sun because it's super hot. So it's not even a crazy adjustment in the sense of like, oh, I have to do something I don't want to do.
Yeah.
You actually welcome it. So yeah, if you just really like a little bit open, it's an absolutely amazing experience, even without having the experience in the temples.
Okay. And so what would you say was like the number one or a couple of them, like the most pivotal moments and experiences of visiting the different temples and the different pyramids? What was like your number one most pivotal experience?
I mean, there were several, but there's
Yeah.
definitely one that is just really falling out of the rest of them, which was in the Horus temple. It is a beautiful temple that you just can walk into, but then further in the back, there is like a trapdoor situation where you go even deeper into the temple, and it's a very, very narrow hallway almost. It's like you can't even, you know, like stretch out your arms to the side. This is how narrow it is, and it is full with hieroglyphs, like even up to the ceilings. The ground is just sand, and it's absolutely beautiful, but it can be a little frightening if,
Yeah.
you know, like small rooms
Yeah.
or like a lot of people is a bit too much for you. But like I don't necessarily have that fear so much, so for me it wasn't a bad thing. But it was also very hot down there, so it almost felt like a sauna. So it was not the most comfortable situation physically necessarily, but spiritually it had the most impact on me. I went down there, I walked along the hallway with like maybe around 5 to 7 other people, and it got really hot pretty quickly, so most of them left. So I ended up just being there with one other girl from our group, and you just go down into it, and then you can go to the right or to the left side. She ended up going to the left side, I ended up going to the right side, and almost simultaneously, it definitely felt like it was simultaneously, we both had a moment where we felt an intense, strong energy, and both literally broke down on the floor, started crying.
Oh, wow.
Me on the right side, her on the left side. And I can obviously only speak on my experience, even though I talked to her about it several times, and she just really agreed with what I'm saying. So I assume she definitely felt the exact same things that I did. And for me, it felt like it was a homecoming. It felt like my soul came home. It was a sense of familiarity, of just a sense of home, love, really strong, supportive, loving energy that I have never in my life felt.
Wow.
Never in my life. And also never again to this point. So it was really intense. It was really, like I said, it did not just feel like I'm home, like how I feel when I'm in my hometown visiting family and I feel loved, and, you know, everyone is just like, how are you? And tell me about everything. It was on a soul level. It was so much deeper.
Wow.
that there is no way that I can explain it ever with just the words that we have in any language. It was really intense. I also definitely had some visions, which I assume are also connected to my past lives.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of still waiting for the rest of the pieces to fall back together. That's why I'm so excited to go back to Egypt and see if some more is coming in, actually. But it was super, super intense. And when I came out of this experience, I just looked over to the side and I just saw her coming up as well. And we just looked at each other, both crying. And then we just looked at each other and we're like, yeah, okay. Like we immediately, like we felt and knew that we had the same experience. So just we walked to each other, we held each other in our arms. We just started cracking up because it was just so intense and so crazy that we both had this experience.
Wow.
And yeah, and then it was time to go to the next side actually already. So like we definitely had to wait a moment until we were able to process everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one of the most intense.
So how many people were in that group?
I believe we were like 18, 20
18.
women.
18,
yeah,
okay.
Something like this.
But there was two of you that it obviously like really impacted the two of you, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
So I wonder,
and the crazy thing is, the crazy thing is that the wisdom keeper actually at some point that was the first day where I didn't know this girl yet. Her name is Grace. Where I didn't know this girl yet because we were just embarking on that journey and we were visiting the Sphinx at this time. And there we both already also had a moment where we just detached a little bit from the group because we just needed to process whatever we were going through, and we ended up sitting on one of the stones closely together. And this is when the wisdom keeper at some point came over and said to her, you know that you had several past lives here, right? And she was like, oh really? And she was like, yeah. And then she looked over to me and she was like, just like her.
Yeah.
And then the wisdom keeper looked at my feet and she was like, your feet are telling me this. I'm like, what? Okay, interesting. Thanks for letting me know. So that was already like a thing where we bonded a little bit just because of that situation. And then maybe 3 days later or whatever, the experience in the Horus Temple that I just talked about happened. So
yeah.
I don't know.
That's what I was going to say. I was imagining that girl also had past lives in Egypt, if it affected her the same way that it affected you.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, let's talk about your upcoming retreat in Egypt. It sounds fascinating. Could you provide the listeners with a sneak peek into what they can expect from this immersive experience and how it ties to your overall mission?
So it's going to be very similar to what I already talked on just now, what I experienced last year. So the pivotal and the most, or the focus will be these 9 initiations led by this wisdom keeper. So we are starting in Cairo, staying at a 5-star hotel for 2 nights where we visit the first sites. And then we fly out to a different city to then embark onto a sailing boat. They are called dahabias in Egypt, which is just a beautiful big boat with several cabins where we will stay for 9 nights, traveling along the Nile to go to each different site. So that in itself is absolutely magical, to be able to see the scenery changing. Traveling along the Nile is just absolutely beautiful. And then we are going to fly back to Cairo for 1 or 2 more nights again in the same hotel. But along the way, it's just really traveling to these different sites, being initiated at each stop. And during the time we are on the boat, mostly, I will provide human design insight. So everyone that is going to be a participant in this Egypt retreat, I will check the human design prior to the trip to be able to see what energies to look out for, what conditionings that might come up that want to be released. So I will be able to say like, hey, this is your conditioning. It's probably connected to this and that core wound in your childhood. And I can imagine this coming up in this and that temple, or when we're going to the pyramid, because this is exactly what it will affect in your body energetically. Then I will provide hypnotherapy group sessions. So we will have group sessions on the boat, either before or after whatever temple we are embarking on, depending on what energy we're working on that day. It is going to help with integrating the downloads. It's going to help with preparing for the downloads to come. And then I also have a very amazing person that is joining us that is doing Kemetic and African yoga. So the
Nice.
yoga practice prior to Indian yoga, to just really also help through bodily movement, integrating everything that comes through. This is also probably going to happen while we are traveling on the boat in the morning or in the evening. And then I have another friend that is joining us. She's a yoga teacher as well, but also a Reiki practitioner. And she's going to be our community doula, being there, holding space, being there for everyone, helping to process whatever needs to process. And then we will obviously also have a lot of conversations. There will be some singing. There will be some spending time together on the boat while we travel. And yeah, that is basically what the journey is about.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And I like what you named the retreat. What'd you name it again? Like Coming Back Home?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that name and everything too. So human design has become a cornerstone for your work, and you touched on it for a second there. So for the listeners who might be new to this concept, could you provide just like a basic overview of what human design is and how it has influenced your own life and journey?
Yes. So human design is a system that is based on astrology, I Ching, Kabbalah, the chakra system, but it's also backed by science through quantum physics. So it helps you to understand what kind of energy type you are, how you can utilize your energy in the best way, how you potentially lose energy, how you can generate potentially more energy. And it just really gives you a bit of a GPS system to help you understand how your energy wants to be used and how you can channel it into the right direction so you can start co-creating with life. So it basically gives you step-by-step guidance of understanding how your intuition tries to communicate with you and tries to help you in making decisions that are in alignment with your energy. It gives you pinpointers of what kind of feelings might come up for you when you are not in alignment. It pinpoints you towards understanding your gifts and your skills, business energies. It's a bottomless pit. Like it can explain so much. You can even have a transit reading and look a bit into the future of what kind of energies you are going into. It's a lot of information, but it's an absolute amazing tool that can help you understand how to navigate through life more easily and how to just harness your energy in the best way to actually be able to live the most authentic version of yourself. And that's exactly what it did for me. When I found out about my human design, my entire life was flipped upside down in the best way possible, because I realized like, oh, I'm actually allowed to be that way, that I always felt drawn to embody, even though society kept telling me that's not how you're supposed to be doing life.
Yeah.
So this confirmation was just already lifting so much pressure from my shoulders and made me understand and realize that it's not just okay to be that way, but it's intended for me to be that way. And that gave me the possibility to just really embody who I'm meant to be. And this is how everything started falling into place for me, and yeah, helped me to do what I'm doing right now.
Nice. I love it. What design type are you?
I'm a manifesting generator.
That's what I am. I was about to ask, like, that's all I know is I'm a manifesting generator. One day, eventually, I'd like to dive more deep into that. I mean, could you give me a couple of golden nuggets? Like, how can I use that information in my life that I'm a manifesting generator?
So manifesting generators are pretty special. Not in a sense of like we're more special than others, because all of them are very special, but manifesting generators are the only hybrid in the human design system. We are partially manifestors and partially generators. We have the same, that's why we're called manifesting generator. We have the same strategy as the generators, but since the manifesting energy comes into play, this is what makes us a little bit different than the original generator. Manifesting generators are here to create something that hasn't been done before. They are here to walk paths that haven't been walked before. Manifesting generator have a really jumpy focus. Which is a thing that can show up in a way when you're cleaning your apartment, for example. You start cleaning the kitchen and then you go into the bathroom to do something, and then you start and you realize you're starting to clean the bathroom. You're like, what just happened? I was just cleaning the kitchen. So your focus is jumpy. Another thing how that can show up is that you are able to write a message and at the same time talk to someone, or doing this thing and then jumping over there, and then doing this thing and then doing this thing. And that can feel distracting. And for society, it looks like you are not focused, you're not able to, stick with one thing, because a lot of manifesting generators maybe started to study something, but they never finish it. They pivot a lot in their jobs. They just change up their life a lot of times. But it is not just okay to be that way. It is intended to be that way. You are meant to pivot a lot, because again, you're meant to create something that hasn't been done before. So you need to gain wisdom from many different fields in a shorter period of time to be able to tie it all together into something that wasn't there before. So having a jumpy focus is intended. You just have to find a way of channeling it in the best way for you, so that it's actually beneficial and not distracting. But as soon as you're not lit up by something anymore, this is the universe trying to communicate with you. It's time to pivot. You learned what you needed to learn in that job, in that study, in that experience. It's time for you to pivot and embark onto something new, because there's more for you to learn.
Wow. Yeah, that definitely resonates with me, and sounds like a manifesting generator is like a multitasker.
That's what people are saying. Yes, I think this is the misconception of it, basically. Yes.
Okay. So your belief in the energy exchange of the universe is profound. How has this belief shaped your approach to life, creativity, and the services that you offer as a spiritual counselor and healer?
As soon as I understood that what you give out comes back, like really understood, like I said in the beginning of this podcast, that was a thing that my mom already taught me. And on a logical level, I understood what that means. But when I really embodied it and understood what that means, I mean on all levels possible, not just in my mind, but actually I experienced it, and therefore I was starting to embody it. This is when life started changing for me. When I understood that my outer reality is connected to my inner reality, and me changing my inner reality will by default change my outer reality, this is when life started falling into place in the best way possible for me. So what I mean by that is, the only thing that you can control in life is how you react to things. The only thing that you can control is your reaction, your emotions, how you play out things. So when in your outer reality, there is a block, that means there's a block in your inner reality. When you are trying to manifest something and it doesn't come through, it means because there's a block within your inner reality that doesn't deem you ready enough or worthy enough yet to receive that. And it's happening on a subconscious level. So that is why I work with hypnotherapy, because it opens you up to release beliefs that are stored in your subconscious, which you will not in the normal state be able to have access to.
Yeah.
And as soon as you are able to do that, you can start deprogramming these beliefs when they are negative beliefs. And then you will, with time, because we as humans, we learn through repetition paired with the intensity of emotion. This is how we change patterns, with repetition and the intensity of emotions. Yeah. So when we allow ourselves to actually do that and realize whatever is stored in our subconscious that keeps us from achieving what we want to achieve in our outer reality, this is when we can actually start changing things and make things happen for ourselves. And again, when I realized that that is a thing and I'm able to actually do this, this is when I started to attract more aligned people in my life. This is when I started to attract more clients in my business. This is when I started to attract more experiences that are in alignment with my highest good, with my most loving energies, like the energies that I want to feel most in my life. More of that came to me, which is also connected again to my human design. But it definitely goes for everyone. And I think that is a thing that holds the potential for everyone to change their life in the way they want it to. But at the same time, we always have to try not to have or not to just open up one channel for things to happen in the exact way we want them to. So we cannot have that one expectation. Like we need to put ourselves through visualizations or through whatever, manifesting, being in heightened energy. This is how we put ourselves into the frequency of matching what we're trying to manifest. But then we need to let go of the expectation, because what that work does is not necessarily getting you exactly what you want. It will just put you into the frequency of your highest good. And then it might come through in a different way.
Yeah.
Because the way you envisioned it is not necessarily in your highest good, even though you think it is. So letting go of the expectation is, I think, the other key to that process.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, definitely my life lately. So my 20s was just a party. It was just a mess. It was a lot of partying, you know. And so I got sober, and interesting. So I got sober, saw a couple of hypnotherapists, changed my life, led me to ayahuasca, changed my life even more. And then most recently, this was like a month ago. I don't know if you're familiar with the modern mystery school, but I saw a lady and she did a life activation on me, a DNA activation. So it was just like boom, boom, boom. And so now I'm excited to see how things play out moving forward.
Amazing. That sounds amazing.
Okay. So Bali is renowned as a spiritual and healing destination. How has living in Bali influenced your own journey and the services you offer to others?
Bali allows me to literally live my best life. It allows me to be in a frequency that gives me the ability to channel in a safe environment, in an environment that gives me what I need to thrive in the best way. So, which is the weather, the energy this island holds itself, the foods that I'm able to consume, the energy that I'm able to consume, the conversations that I'm able to have, the experiences that I'm allowed to have. All of these things are part of what makes it possible for me to channel my best work, to channel and be able to put together my best offerings, because I am able to receive an energy that makes me feel so good most of the time, that I am able to hold energy of other people and feel and channel the energy of other people that don't feel their best. And therefore I'm able to guide them through embodying it myself to their best life, to their best possible timeline, basically. So I think this island just provides a beautiful way of living. And when it is paired with similar abilities that I have, it is almost like a clear, straight channel from me receiving that energy into channeling it into an offering that can help someone else feel their best.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Okay. What advice would you give to someone who is just beginning their spiritual journey or seeking to align with their true self, but they don't know where to start?
Well, I might be a little bit biased here, but the only thing or the best thing that I will always put out there is human design. I really feel like, compared to astrology, for example, it gives you even more tangible steps. It gives you even more logical steps and a guiding system to not just understand who you are, but give you actual steps to embody it even more in the best way possible. So Google your human design, find out your birth time if you don't know it, check with the hospital that you were born in or your birth certificate, or ask your mother. The more accurate the timing is, the more accurate your reading will be. And then start off with like Googling it, finding out your energy type, finding out your authority, finding out your strategy. And if you edit your not self theme and your signature as well, these points are the most pivotal that can help you to understand how your energy wants to be utilized by you as the human being that you chose to be in this lifetime. And this will start changing your life.
Wow.
Everything else will fall into place. What else I would recommend is just have patience, be compassionate with yourself, give yourself the time to process what needs to process, but basically stop running away from things that want to be felt and that want to be released by you, because you can only heal what you feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, so I think definitely the human design, doing a reading, that'll be one of my next projects. I think I need to do that for sure. So kind of closing it out. So what excites you the most about the future of your work and the impact you aim to create in the lives of those you touch?
What excites me the most is seeing people feeling better about themselves, realizing their own magic, realizing their own power, the innate power that they have, that we all have.
Yeah.
Unlocking the gifts that everyone has. Yes, there are people out there, myself included, calling themselves psychics and having specific abilities, but everyone does. We
Yeah.
all are able to unlock the same abilities. We are all able to receive visions, to hear things, to feel things. And it's just really part of what the collective ascension, I believe, is about. We will embark into unlocking more of these gifts and abilities on a collective level throughout the next years.
Oh
So
yeah.
me being able to be a part of making this happen and guiding people through this journey is what gives me the most joy. I
Yeah.
love seeing these things falling off people and just really showing their most authentic version of themselves, because this is what happened to me. And I know how it feels like and how freeing and liberating it is, and how much better you feel when you actually realize that it's okay to be exactly who you want to be. And seeing that in real time happening for people is one of the biggest joys that I have.
I love it. Okay. And so yeah, I mean, times are crazy right now. We can all feel it, you know. Can you send the listeners a final message of love and healing?
I think it's just this, I just want to repeat what I said with the question that you asked before. It's just be compassionate with yourself. Allow patience, surrender to what needs to happen for you, because everything that happens in your life is for you. It's never against you. It's never happening to you. It's always happening for you and through you. You're
Mm-hmm.
part of it. You have the power to co-create with life. You just have to unlock and understand how exactly it works for you.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Gianna, for meeting with me today. And thank you for providing such great storytelling and wisdom on this episode. I want to thank the listeners for sticking around to the end. And so, Gianna, please tell everyone where to find your information. And I'll also add it to the description of the video.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It was a great time. I always love talking about these things. You can find me on Instagram, Gianna, Gianna _ Shamone, Shamone. You can find me on my website, giannashamone.com. You can find me on TikTok, also Gianna _ Shamone, and on Twitter. I just keep calling it Twitter. It's the same thing, and probably on all other social media platforms. But the biggest one where I am mostly online is Instagram.
Okay, awesome. Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.